السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله، بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الله به الغمة وجاهد في سبيل ربه حتى أتاه اليقين. فاللهم ارضه عنا وعن والدينا وعن الإسلام والمسلمين خير ما جازيت به نبيا عن قومه ورسولا عن أمته. اللهم أحينا على سنته وتوفنا على ملته وأوردنا حوضه واسقنا من يده الشريفة شربة هنيئة لا نظمأ بعدها أبدا. ثم أما بعد. Today, inshallah, we'll try to cover part of the life of Imam Ash-Shafiee, Muhammad ibn Idris Ash-Shafiee al-Qurashi. Imam Ash-Shafiee lived only for 54 years. He was born in 150 years after Hijrah. The same year when Imam Abu Hanifa died, and some even claim that he was born the same day when Imam Abu Hanifa died, but Imam al-Jawzi and others said that's very difficult to accurately determine the day. But it's enough to know that he was born the same year when Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, passed away. He was born in Gaza. I'm sure you hear about Gaza so much now, right? You know the name, the full name of Gaza? Gazzata Hashim, right? The Ghazawiyin, or the Palestinians, they know Gaza as Gazzata Hashim because Hashim, the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ, he died there, was doing a business trip, and he died in Gaza, and they have also relatives there. So he was born there, and his mother actually was Yemeni from Al-Azd, Al-Azdiyya, Fatima Al-Azdiyya. And Ash-Shafii's father passed away while very young. So Ash-Shafiee was born as an orphan. When he was 2 years old, his mother took him to Mecca to maintain his nasab. In fact, the ulama of nasab, they said that Imam Ash-Shafiee and the Prophet ﷺ are cousins because they meet each other in Abdul Muttalib ibn Hashim. Or Hashim, Abdul Muttalib, they meet each other, and the grandfather of the Prophet and the grandfather of Ash-Shafiee is Abdul Muttalib. She took him to Mecca when he was only 2 years old. He was very poor, although he's coming from a very noble family, but he was an orphan and very, very poor. He spent most of his life as a very poor person. But his mother was very smart, and she was very eager to teach him Al-Quran. So he memorized Al-Quran when he was 7, and he memorized the Muwatta of Imam Malik when he was 10. And we'll talk about his amazing, sharp memory and intelligence. They talked about his mother and how smart she was. One day, they went to the court to witness about something, and she and another woman. And the judge wanted to separate these two women, so to make sure that their shahada is accurate. Did they say the same thing? And when the judge said that, she said, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, أَن تَضِلَّ إِحْدَاهُمَا فَتُذَكِّرَ إِحْدَاهُمَا الْأُخْرَى. Allah said, either two men or one man and two women. For if one of them, of the two women, forgot, her sister would remind her. So this cannot happen if you separate us. And the judge said, yeah, you are right, you come together. And this also tells about how smart she was. And she actually sent him to Qabila, one of the tribe called Hudayl. And Hudayl was known as the Arab tribe that preserved the very original and pure Arabic language. The most eloquent Arabic tribe is Hudayl. And he memorized, he lived with them. He lived in Mecca and lived with them when he was still young. And he memorized more than 4,000 of their poetry. And from this, he was very, very eloquent, and he was very aware of the shi'r, the poetry of Arabs, and the days, or mean the history, and the people, and the ansab. He was very good in this, and he learned also how to shoot arrows. And he was very known, Ash-Shafiee, of being very accurate when he shoots arrows. And jumping on the horse, you know, Imam Ash-Shafiee, he was just one jump and find him on the top of the horse. So he learned so much from the years he spent with the people of Hudayl, and this was reflected on how he speaks and how he eloquently clarified his points. When he came to Egypt later on, his students, Rabi' and others, they said, we heard about this Qurayshi guy, you know, a Qurayshi person from Quraysh, came to Egypt. This was almost in the year 198, 99, 5 years before his death. He died, he spent 5 years in Egypt, and he died in Egypt. They said, we went to see this Qurayshi person that people are talking about. Nobody knows him, you know, in Egypt. He has some family members in Egypt, so he went to them. And the governor of Bani Abbas was also very nice. He's from Ahl al-Bayt, of course, and there's kind of kinship between him and Ash-Shafiee. So Ash-Shafiee left Iraq because Al-Ma'mun at that time, he liked the Mu'tazilites, and he did not like, Ash-Shafiee did not like to stay in this environment, so he went to Egypt because the governor of Egypt at that time was a nice person. He invited him to come to Egypt. And so when he went to Egypt, they said, we went to see this Qurashi person. So we came and we found him praying in the masjid, and we kept observing him praying, and we liked the way he prays very much. And we said to each other, we haven't seen someone praying like this. So when he finished his prayer and he looked at us, and we said, we haven't seen someone with, you know, that handsome. His face, you know, when we have iman and taqwa and sidq, you know, this is reflected in the face. And when he talked to us, and he said, we haven't heard anybody that eloquent. The way he speaks, and his students also, Al-Rabi', he mentioned that Imam Ash-Shafiee tried his best to write his books, the books he wrote, we'll talk about, in a very simple language, so everybody, the layman, can understand it. He intentionally simplified his language. Authors and writers, and highly intellectual people, they intentionally write very difficult writing. Sometimes when you read a book, you get tired. They choose big words and big expressions and things. But Imam Ash-Shafiee, he said, his student said, if he wrote his books the way with the same level of language he used in debate, very few people will be unable to understand his books. But he just tried to simplify it. So now if you read a Risala or Al-Umm or other books, you find it not very easy. But this is the easy way to write. And of course, he himself was a poet. And he said a lot of beautiful poetry. But he did not expand on this. He did not like to be known as a poet. And he said this very famous verse when he said that وَلَوْلَا الشِّعْرُ بِالْعُلَمَاءِ يُزْرِي لَكُنْتُ الْيَوْمَ أَشْعَرَ مِنْ لَبِيدِ. If it was not that shi'r, saying poetry, would reduce the level of a scholar, today I could have been better than Labid. Labid ibn Abi Rabi'a, one of the greatest Arab poets even before Islam, and he became Muslim when Rasulullah came. Labid ibn Abi Rabi'a. عفت الديار محلها فمقامها بمن تأبد غولها فرجامها رزقت مرابيع النجوم وصابها وطق الرواعد جودها فرهامها. Has a wonderful mu'allaqa, very long mu'allaqa, has more than 150 verses. One of the 7 best poetry in the pre-Islamic Arabic poetry, Labid ibn Abi Rabi'a. So Shafi'i said that if it was not just that saying shi'r so much would reduce your status as a scholar, I could have been better than Labid in this. Although the ulama of the Arabic language, they don't consider al-muwallideen. If you want to quote a verse of poetry to make your point, to understand the meaning of a word, you don't go beyond the time of the first generation of Islam. They used to quote the verses of those who came before Islam. This reflects the original pure meaning of the language. But they considered Imam Shafi'i to be hujjah. If Imam Shafi'i used the word in a statement, then they said they can quote Imam Shafi'i. This is how original and pure his language was. So he was known as a person who has a very good character, and he was also known as a rahal. He traveled so much. He came from Gaza to Mecca, and from Mecca to Havil, Hudayl, and then he went to Medina to study with Imam Malik and spent almost 7 years with Imam Malik studying his knowledge. And then he went to to Yemen first, and then he went to Iraq, and then he came back to Mecca, to Iraq again, and to Egypt. So he traveled so much, and he benefited from the places he traveled to. One of the unique things about Imam Shafi'i is that at that time, of course, two schools of thought have been established. One in Iraq, the Hanafi school, and the students of Abu Hanifa wrote and spread his knowledge. Abu Yusuf was the older student, and Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, as you mentioned before, he was only 18 years old when Imam Abu Hanifa died, but he was a very brilliant scholar. And Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan also learned from Imam Malik. So he went to Medina and learned from Malik, and then went back and stayed in Iraq. So Imam al-Shafi'i, he spent his youth with Imam Malik, and he's considered one of the students of Malik. And then when he went to Iraq and met Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan, he started with him the fiqh, the Iraqi fiqh versus the Medina fiqh of Malik. But he disliked to debate Muhammad ibn Hassan, because Muhammad Hassan at that time was the scholar of Iraq. He was the second Abu Hanifa at that time. But when he leaves his lecture, then he debates his students. He could debate Muhammad al-Hassan, but out of respect, he said no. This happens so frequently. He comes, attend the lecture, and when Muhammad al-Hassan leaves, then he debates his students. And they told Muhammad al-Hassan about this. So Muhammad al-Hassan told him, why don't you just debate with me or discuss these issues with me? He said, no, I don't want to do this. No, just bring your arguments. And they start discussing and being arguments back and forth, and the people who witnessed this, they said Imam Shafi'i used to win every debate. However, he said a statement, one of the statements that I want to end with, but it should be mentioned now. He said, every time I debate someone, I wish that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring the truth on his tongue, not on my tongue. Because I learn from the debate. I don't debate to win the debate. I debate to find the truth. And once I find it, I get it. It doesn't matter who wins the debate. And this is not very easy. Kind of akhlaq. It's not very easy. People debate to win the debate because others are watching, right? You don't want to be a loser. So what happens is you debate no matter what. Even if you think or you know you're wrong, you're going to keep debating, right? So he benefited from the ilm, the knowledge of Al-Hijaz, and as we talked about Imam Malik just was emerged in a specific environment, and Imam Abu Hanifa also emerged in a specific environment, and he has students, and the knowledge go back to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Malik always say, حدثني نافع عن ابن عمر. So Nafi' to Ibn Umar to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he wrote, he read Al-Muwatta and studied, and then he went to Al-Iraq, benefit from the knowledge of the people of Al-Iraq as well. When he was in Mecca, he mentioned that I don't even have the money, or my mother and I we cannot afford to buy papers. So he would go to the diwan of the city hall, the called city hall now, and they collect the paper that they throw it in the garbage. It's written from one side, the other side is empty. So he would take it and use the back of the blank side and write it. His mother would go, they live in, their house was in Al-Khayf, in Mecca. She would go where people slaughter their camels. She'd get the shoulder of the camel, take it and wash it and clean it and get it ready for Imam Shafi'i. It's as big as this table so that he can write in it. And he said there were tons of these bones in our homes. But when he does not have anything to write on, he memorizes. And one of the unique things about Imam Shafi'i is his amazing ability of memorizing things. Allah gave him this mind. Although he did not like to debate on Aqidah issues, Ilm al-Kalam, but there was a very famous person at that time, and people actually told Imam Shafi'i, you should go and talk to him. And so Imam Shafi'i went and debated with him. And this person was talking about Al-Qadar and what's Al-Qadar and all these kind of things. Imam Shafi'i did not like it, but he debated him. And he said about Imam Shafi'i, I think this young man, his brain, his mind is as powerful as the minds of half of the world population today. This is how sharp his mind was, Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah. They were that poor, and Imam Sheikh Muhammad al-Urayfi mentioned the story that when he went to Imam Malik, in the beginning, he used to sit and listen to Imam Malik's lectures, and he used to write on his hand, just write on his hand. And Imam Malik thought this is abath, yani. What are you doing? He said, I'm trying to memorize what you said. Did you memorize anything? He said, yes. So tell me what, and he kept going on and on and on, telling him what he heard from Imam Malik. What's your name, boy? He said, my name is Muhammad. He said, Ya Muhammad, taqillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you this light. Don't turn this light off by disobeying Allah subhanahu. In other words, have taqwa and iman, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring more nur to your brain and to your heart. So he learned the methodology of Imam Malik, and he also learned the methodology of Imam Abu Hanifa through his students, Muhammad ibn Hassan in particular. And he's a very good debater. I mean, because his mind is very sharp and very organized. So the points just kicks in very smoothly. And he was debating with the students of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, and he's representing the Maliki school at that time. He was the student of Malik, and so he said to the Iraqi guy, because they were debating which madhab is stronger and better and things like that. All students do that. So he said, Imam Abu Shafi'i said to him, by Allah, who has more knowledge of the Quran, Abu Hanifa or Malik? He said, yeah, Malik. Who has more knowledge of the narration and riwayah and the accuracy of the riwayat and things? He said, well, Malik, yeah. About the Arabic language, he said Malik. And Imam Shafi'i said, nothing left except the qiyas, analogy. And that's for Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa is known as very sharp when it comes to the qiyas and doing analogy, as we explained it before. He debated Imam Ahmad also about a Muslim guy who does not pray. Imam Ahmad said he's kafir, he's not Muslim. And this is how they debate, but not they debate to win the debate, but just to find the truth. Use their human intellect. Imam Shafi'i said, well, if you think he's kafir, how can he become Muslim? A Muslim guy, he's Muslim. Maybe he did Hajj, he fasts from Allah, but he does not pray out of laziness. He said to Imam Ahmad, if he is not Muslim, what does he need to do to become Muslim? He said to pray. Imam Shafi'i said, then the prayer of a kafir is not accepted. If a kafir prays, then it does not make him Muslim, right? If a non-Muslim came and he witnessed the salah and he prayed with us, his salah does not make him Muslim, right? What else does he need to make to become Muslim? He said he should say shahada. The guy says it every day. Has no problem with jihad, he says it. So Imam Ahmad remained silent. So in other words, Imam Shafi'i wanted to tell him that he's not kafir, he's still Muslim, but he's committing a great sin. But this does not make him kafir. And there's a lot of discussion about whether the one who does not pray is Muslim or not. But this is how they use their intellect to find the conclusions. When he went to Mecca, he was also listening to the scholars of Mecca. Khalid al-Zinji was the main mufti of Mecca. Khalid al-Zinji. And he learned a lot from him, and he gave him the ijazah to give fatwa. Because don't give fatwa until the Imams or your teacher allows you to go and say, so go, أنا لك أن تفتي يا ابن إدريس. So he was giving fatwa in al-Haram in Mecca, sitting, and people come from Iraq, from Yemen, from Egypt, from everywhere, making Hajj and try to find an Imam. And this season of Hajj in particular was the season of scholars. Scholars come specially to meet the Muhaddithin, and the Muhaddithin meet the Fuqaha, and they see each other and take hadith from each other and study knowledge with each other. So he would sit and give fatwa when he was 17. Some said when he was 19. 17 or 19, sitting, giving fatwa in Al-Haram Al-Makki by the permission of his teachers. Then when he heard about Imam Malik, of course, Imam Malik was maybe the most famous scholar at that time. He went to Al-Madinah to study with him. There is a story also mentioned in the beginning when he came to see Imam Malik, and he heard about the gravity and the dignity of Imam Malik, and it's not easy just to go and knock his door and talk to him, see him, talk to him in the street like this. No. Imam Malik, people just wait until he comes and sit down in his chair, very famous chair. He sit down with, wonderful clothes and amama, and then he starts giving knowledge. You don't stop him and talk to him like you talk to anybody. No, Imam Malik is different. People actually are like, they don't fear him. They have a great reverence to him. So it has been narrated that the Wali of Mecca sent a letter to the Wali of Al-Madinah, and Imam Ash-Shafiee was there and took this message to him to take care of Imam Ash-Shafiee, or Ash-Shafiee at that time, was not a great Imam, and to take him to Imam Malik to study there. And they went together to Imam Malik's house, and the servant of Imam Malik came and said, "What do you want?" He said, "I am the Wali of Medina." The governor of Medina went to his house, all right, shaking because he's going to see Imam Malik. What do you want? He said, "I want to talk to him about something." What is it? Is it fiqh or hadith or what? I said, "No, I have a message for him." They said he waited for so long with Imam Shafi'i with him. And he came, and the servant came first and brought a chair, or that chair of Imam in his house, Imam Malik, and he put it there, and Imam Malik coming full wonderful outlook. He went and sit down the chair, and the Wali is standing. He said, "Okay, I heard you have a letter for me. What is it?" And he said, "The Wali of Mecca is, wants you to write him about this and this hadith and this fatwa and stuff like that. And this young man, he wants to go and study." He said, "Do you have something to write?" And he said, "No." Why are we here?" He said, "I came here to listen to Al-Muwatta, to get Al-Muwatta from you, to be more authentic." He said, "Go and find someone to read it for you." Malik has no time to read for one individual. Go and find someone who knows Al-Muwatta, who has a copy of Al-Muwatta, and read it to you. He said, "No, but I want to get it from you." I said, "Go and find someone to read Al-Muwatta to you." He said, no, I know Al-Muwatta. I don't need anybody to read for me. So what do you know? He said, if you want, I can recite the entire Muwatta. He said, okay, say something. And start getting page 1, page 2. It's like someone reading a book. It's like you reading a book. This is how amazing his brain. Imam Malik was listening. He said, okay, give me more. And he kept going on and on and on. I said, give me more, read more. And from that moment, he told him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be something. So fear Allah, don't waste your time, and focus on this, because you will be something. And he spent almost 7 years with Imam Malik, listening to him and reading to him. They also said Imam Ash-Shafiee has a very beautiful voice when he reads Al-Quran. When he speaks, people are attracted to the way he speaks. When he reads Al-Quran, his recitation is beautiful. When he reads Al-Muwatta, or book of knowledge, is very accurate, as if he's reading the book. Imam Malik died in the year 179, and he decided to leave Medina, because Medina, after Malik, lost its centrality as the place or the capital of knowledge after Imam Malik. So he went back to Mecca to visit his mother. At that time, Imam Ash-Shafiee was in the mid-20s, and he was very sharp, and people were talking about him. And he decided to go to Najran in Yemen, because the wali of Yemen at that time was in Mecca, and he heard about Ash-Shafiee, and he was advised that take this guy with you to be like a judge and mufti, and he will be a great help for you. So he took him with him, and he went to Yemen. And when he went to Yemen, everybody liked him because he was very just, and the governor was not very liked by people, but they liked the justice and fairness of Imam Ash-Shafiee rahimahullah. And people liked him, and he, of course, he also met the scholars of Yemen and learned from them, and so on. While he's in Yemen, something bad happened to him. You remember every Imam we talked about, he went through some trials because of the political environment at that time. Eventually, the wali of Al-Yemen did not like Imam Shafi'i. And at that time, it was the time of Bani al-Abbas. And Bani al-Abbas, they got their legitimacy from the fact that they are the descendants of al-Abbas, who is from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. But the Alawis, the descendants of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, have closer lineage to the Prophet ﷺ. So there was always revolts and resistance from the descendants of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, as we explained before. So anybody is Alawi. Alawi means one of the children of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu anhu. When Bani Abbas were not tolerant at all with any group or any movements that support Bani Ali ibn al-Alawiyin in general. So they wrote to the Khalifa at that time, telling him that there are 9 guys in Yemen who are talking about criticizing Bani Abbas, and they're supporting Bani Ali ibn Abi Talib. And one of them, he said, he wrote, one of them, his tongue is more effective than the sword. So he said, bring all of them to me. There were 9. They were brought from Yemen to Baghdad. They were handcuffed and shackled, including Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah. And this was the first visit, by the way, to Iraq by Imam Ash-Shafi'i. From Yemen all the way to Iraq, he was a prisoner, basically. It was Harun al-Rashid, the Khalifa at that time. These 9 people, 8 of them were killed and it was the turn of Imam Shafi'i to be killed also. But because of his strong argument and eloquence, he said, I was not involved in any revolt, anything like this. And he said to the Khalifa, what do you think of two people? One of them think of me as his brother, and someone think of me as his servant, right? Which one you think will be more beloved to me? He said, the one who think of you as your brother, not the one who think of you as his servant. He said, okay, this is the case. You, Bani Abbas, are my brothers because I'm from Bani Abdul Muttalib, so we are like brothers. And Bani Ali ibn Abi Talib, they think of us as their servants. So Harun Rashid liked this argument, very powerful argument. And of course he mentioned other things, so he forgave him, and he told him also that I want to meet Muhammad ibn Hassan and so on. So Muhammad ibn Hassan actually, when he met him and talked to him, he witnessed to the Khalifa that this guy is very knowledgeable and please let him go. And he left and he spent good times with Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, and this helped him to escape this trial. But just think about it. Someone is, chained and brought from Yemen to Iraq to be killed, actually. He said, when I went to Al-Iraq, I spent 60 dinar to buy the books of Muhammad ibn Hassan. Muhammad ibn Hassan almost collected all the usul of Imam Abu Hanifa, and he put it in a number of books. One of them is Al-Mabsut, that has like the 6 main books, Al-Siyar al-Kabir, Al-Siyar al-Saghir, other Hanafi knowledge. He put it together in one huge book called Al-Mabsut. So Imam Shafi'i, although he was not that wealthy, he spent 60 dinar, which is a huge amount at that time. He said, I kept reading them. He was reading these volumes of books, and he said, I read the mas'ala and I put my notes on the side of the page, right? Still, he considered himself one of the students of Malik and defending the tariqah, the manhaj of Imam Malik. And we talked about how he debates with his students, and then eventually he debated Muhammad ibn Hassan himself. Then he went back to Mecca after he learned the Hanafi way, Hanafi manhaj. And I remember when I was young studying the Shafi'i madhab, our Sheikh, Ahmad Husni, he was telling us why he himself chose to be Shafi'i. He said because there are 2 schools of thought, and they have a lot of differences, the Iraqi and the Hijazi, right? The Iraqi, the people of Ra'i, intelligence, and the Hijazi, the school of Al-Athar and Ahadith and narrations. And Imam Shafi'i was able to bridge the gap between these 2 schools. He understood both of them perfectly, and he came up with his own madhab from the best of the 2. So, and that was very convincing. When I heard this, wow, yeah, if this is the case, then you get the best of the Hanafi school and the best of the Maliki, and you have, in addition to this, the brilliant mind of Imam Shafi'i. This makes a lot of sense. This is the way to go. So we studied Fiqh al-Shafi'i based on this argument. He spent 9 years in Mecca after he came from Al-Iraq, and at that time he was fully mature and understood the methodology of Malik and the methodology of Abu Hanifa, and he wrote his book because he was asked actually by Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi to write, and this is, if you want to know the greatest achievement of Imam Shafi'i, it would be this. Imam Ash-Shafiee decided to, when he met plenty of ulama in Mecca, in Medina, in Yemen, in Iraq, he thought that the issue of fatwa or fiqh is all about producing hukm, halal or haram. This is the fruit of it. But before this, there's a long and complex process called ijtihad. So the alim would read the Quran and read the Sunnah, and you can get lost very easily because there are plenty of tafsir and plenty of narrations and hadith, some of them contradictory to one another. You don't know which one is general and which one is particular, which one abrogated the other and which one came before the other, because the later hadith has more weight than the earlier one, and which one is more authentic than the other, which narration you will take and which narration you will ignore. And even if you want to understand the text, how to understand a text, a statement by the Prophet ﷺ, that's a very deep and complex process. So he decided to do something nobody else has done. You know, when we talk about Aristotle, the great philosopher, what did he achieve? What is the kind of knowledge that he brought to organize our thoughts, so we don't make mistakes while we're thinking? These are science that he initiated. We study until today. So Aristotle came up with logic. Yes. So logic is one of the pillars of philosophy. In order to think properly, you have to have this logic. So it's a methodology of thinking, way of thinking, a thought process that's called logic. To be a good philosopher, in order not to commit fatal mistakes while you're thinking, then you have to master logic, okay? Basic logical principles can help you not to commit mistakes. So we think of Aristotle as the great philosopher who initiated this knowledge, logic. And nobody added anything to this. He initiated from A to Z, and that's it. That's how great his mind was. And Imam Ash-Shafiee was like this. He said, I need to establish a thought process or principles that's known today as what? As usul al-fiqh. These are fiqh and these usul al-fiqh. So for you as a faqih to think properly, for your ijtihad to be correct, you need to have some principles, some tools in order to help you go from one point to the other until you reach the conclusion. Your thought process must follow certain principles. The word, you know what the word usul means, right? So usul al-fiqh. Usul al-fiqh is different. And by the way, you can find someone who is usuli, but not a faqih necessarily. And someone who is a faqih, but it's not usuli. In the old days, when we talk about these great imams, they're both usuli and faqih and muhaddith and everything. But now the branch of science, when you study Islamic studies, what do you study? He said, I study usul al-fiqh. Okay, so he's scholar of usul al-fiqh, right? Or he study fiqh. Fiqh means a branch. Is ilm al-furu'. There's ilm al-usul and ilm al-furu'. The usul are the fundamentals or the principles, and furu' is to know the hukm of the wudu and the hukm of salah and what to do. This is the fiqh. It's called furu', the branches, because these furu' comes from the asl. Okay, so Imam Ash-Shafiee, he initiated this science. It's called ilm usul al-fiqh. Okay, so now how about the Hanafi people? If Ash-Shafiee is the founder of ilm usul al-fiqh, does this mean that the Hanafis don't have usul? No, they do have usul. So there are two ways to think about the principles of fiqh. One is deductive and the other is inductive. Imam Ash-Shafiee way is you need to study this usul first, okay? These are usul, and then you go and do the furu' based on this usul, right? So when the fatwa comes to you on a mas'ala, when you study a mas'ala, okay? If you touch your wife, your skin touches the skin, would this break your wudu or not? Okay, to answer this, you need to go to the Quran, the Sunnah, the Hadith, and to go through this thought process and reach a conclusion, okay? All right, so he said, this way is to study this usul first, and then any mas'ala comes to you, you go through this usul and reach a conclusion. This does not mean, by the way, that all ulama will, if they follow the same usul, they will reach the same conclusion necessarily. No. But at least to have a way of thinking, right? A methodology of thinking, like logic to philosophy. Okay? The Hanafi way is the opposite. It is the opposite. It is to study the fiqh of Imam Abu Hanifa and his students, and from studying this fiqh we can collect the rules. Not the other way around. All right? So if you want to know the usul, that's why the books of usul al-Hanafi or usul Abu Hanifa was not written by Abu Hanifa. But Ash-Shafiee, he himself, while he's alive, sharp, brilliant, mature, he wrote his usul. So he thought of, you know what, the fuqaha are totally different, you know, they go far right and far left and up and down, they contradict, and things are just the big mess. So why don't we come up with principles that every faqih should master before he practices ijtihad? And he did this. And he did it in his book Al-Risala. He wrote it to Muhammad ibn al-Mahdi. And Muhammad ibn al-Mahdi, when he read this Risala, he said, ما أظن أن الله عز وجل خلق مثل هذا الرجل. I don't think that Allah has created anyone like this man. To be able to organize and to collect these principles in one book, he said, this mind is so genius. Now you know one of the greatest achievements of Imam Ash-Shafiee is to establish ilm, usul al-fiqh. And I strongly believe that we will always be confused. We'll continue to be confused until we study usul al-fiqh. Not in very deep way, but at least to understand how the faqih thinks. When we talk about qiyas, istihsan, masalih mursala, and all these things yesterday and before, this is usul fiqh. This is usul fiqh. So if we know how the fuqaha think, we'll appreciate this disagreement, we'll appreciate the different opinions, and we'll not be panicked. We'll say, oh, well, why all these ulama disagree? Don't we follow? I don't know how many times you heard this. Someone who is ignorant but took the member and says, why? We have one Quran and one Sunnah. Why you are Shafi'i and Madhi? With all due respect, you are ignorant. You don't know anything. We have one Quran and Sunnah. Why do you have all these madhab? This madhab is something that we should be very proud of. We should be very proud to have a person like Imam Ash-Shafi'i, or a person like Abu Hanifa, or Muhammad ibn Hassan, or Abu Yusuf, or Al-Layth ibn Sa'd in Egypt, who was almost the peer of Imam Malik. And many said Imam Layth ibn Sa'd has more knowledge than Malik, but he did not have a student to write his knowledge. That's why he was not that famous. We should be proud of having these schools of thought. Very brilliant. Al-Risala is taught today in Harvard, in Cambridge, in Oxford, in Temple and Georgetown. Scholars, they study Imam Ash-Shafi'i as a lawmaker, because there is a law and there is a philosophy of law. The branches of law you can read. You want to know the French law, you buy this, and this is what the law says. This is the kufru. But what is the philosophy behind the law? Because every law has a philosophy. There is a sociology of law and there is philosophy of law. And this is the law itself. Every lawmaker, they have principles and values. To produce a law, the law reflects the culture, the values, the ethics of this particular country. That is what makes Islamic law unique, because Islamic law reflects the philosophy of Islam. Of justice, equality, fairness, the right of the group or the community, has more power than the right of the individuals. All these principles are reflected in the Islamic law. The American legal system is based on the American history and culture of separation between church and state, secularity, religious liberty, equality, and so on. And all these principles are reflected in the American legal system. right? So this is the law, this is the philosophy of law. You can say usul al-fiqh is the philosophy of Islamic law. Usul al-fiqh is the philosophy of Islamic law, right? If you have a fiqh question on how to make wudu and whether your wudu is valid or not, don't go to an usuli, a philosopher of Islamic law. You just need to go to a faqih who knows the branches, who knows what the law says, right? Now we have, do we have more usulis or more fuqaha? I think neither of them, I'm afraid. But science of usul al-fiqh, I wish you guys find any book that can give you a simple introduction of usul al-fiqh. Let me give you an example. Imam Ash-Shafiee said people just read the text, but they reach so many different conclusions. When Rasulullah ﷺ says, do something, what does this mean? When Rasulullah says, do something, does it mean it is obligatory, or does it mean it is recommended, or does it mean it's permissible? Because when Rasulullah says, do something, or Allah says in the Quran, do something, maybe He wants to let us know it's permissible to do it. Or maybe He wants us to do it as an obligation. Or maybe He's recommended for us. So Imam Ash-Shafiee said, now people get lost. Rasulullah ﷺ says, do something. Our Quran says, do something. كُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيْنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ. In Ramadan, eat and drink until Fajr comes. Eat and drink. This is an order, right? So does it mean that we have to eat and drink until Fajr comes? Or it's permissible for you to eat until Fajr? I'll give you this example before Jum'ah. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ. When you hear the adhan of Jum'ah, leave your business and come to the salah. And when the salah is over, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. You can spread yourself on the earth. Go back to whatever you want to do. Now you have two orders here. One says, فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Come to Salatul Jum'ah. And the other one said, after Jum'ah, go and wherever you want. Two orders. But the first order, is it obligation or recommendation or permissibility? Huh? It's a command. To use the legal terminology, it's wajib. It's fard. Right? So, but the second command, فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. Is it a command or obligation or permissibility? It's permissibility. It's, in other words, after Salah, you do whatever you want. It's permissible to do business, to visit your friend, to go back home, do what you want. You don't have to stay in the masjid after this. So, two commands in one context. But one, from legal perspective, is an obligation. It's wajib. Or now to use the legal terminology, it's wajib. It's haram not to answer this. But the second one is also a command, but the meaning is it's permissible for you to do this answer. So Imam Ash-Shafiee said, now this is one of the problems. People read the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, but they have different conclusions. What does the Prophet mean by this? Does he mean that we have to do it? Or does it mean that he's guiding us to, he was recommending something for us? Or he wants us to understand that it's permissible. Al-amru la ya'ni, he came with this principle, usul. Al-amru la ya'ni bil-darura al-wujub. You have to find another evidence, either logical evidence or another text to say, oh no, the Prophet ﷺ said, do this, it's wajib. No, this. What makes you understand it's wajib? Yeah, because there's another hadith, and because the Prophet ﷺ did this all the time. So from this, I understand that. I give you another example of the masah. When Allah says, اغسلوا وجوهكم, wash your hands and your face, and wipe on your head, and then wash your feet. Wash, wipe, and wash, right? So the ulama have this logical evidence that this order is meant to be this way. When you make wudu, you have to follow this order. You cannot just start by your feet, and then your face, and then your hand. You cannot do that. But others said, no, Allah said, do these four things. It doesn't mean to do it in order. He didn't say, wash your hand, then wash your face, then. Allah could have said that. اغسلوا وجوهكم ثم أيديكم ثم. And this makes it clear. This order must be observed. But he said, wash and wash and wipe and wash these things. So Imam Abu Hanifa said this order is not a must. But Imam Ash-Shafiee said, no, there's a sign here that Allah wants us to keep this order. What is the sign? He said he could have talked about washing in one side and then wipe another, but he put this wipe your head between washing hand and washing face and washing feet. He put it in between. And Arabs, usually when they speak, and they don't separate between similar things unless they want to observe the order. And that's a logical evidence. Allah wants us to make wudu with this order, he argued. So the greatest achievement of Imam Ash-Shafiee is that he established this principle that helped the faqih to understand how to make ijtihad without making fatal big mistakes. So ilm usul al-fiqh is the production of Imam Ash-Shafi'i, and up until now we study it. There are two ways, as I said, to study usul fiqh. One, the Hanafi way, one, the Shafi'i way. The Hanafi way is to read the fiqh and to find out the rule that collect or organize all these masail. And the Shafi'i is the other way around. Study the usul fiqh first and then apply it in every other mas'ala. Time is running, so I just want to end with his wafa. As I mentioned, when he went back to Iraq again, and then Iraq was the capital of knowledge, hadith or fiqh and usul and aqidah and everything. But he decided to leave Iraq because the Khalifa at that time, he liked the Mu'tazilats, and they spread all these unnecessarily confusing issues about Al-Quran and whether Quran is created by Allah or the word of Allah and all these kind of things, and they want to force people to follow one opinion and things. And Imam Shafi'i said there's no point to study all these things. What's the point? Allah did not talk about it, the Prophet did not ask about it, the Sahaba did not ask the Prophet about it, so just ignore this. We know Al-Quran is the word of Allah. Don't go any further, because the further you go, the more confused you become. So he decided to go to Egypt because the governor of Egypt at that time was from Ahl al-Bayt, and it was nice to him, and he invited him to come over. And when he came to Egypt and he asked the student of knowledge, what kind of fiqh the people of Egypt follow? They said there are two groups. One group are very supportive of Imam Malik. His students are here spreading his madhab. And the second half are the big fans of Abu Hanifa, and his students teach the madhab of Abu Hanifa. And Imam Shafi'i said, I hope, inshallah, I will come up with a third opinion that will unite both of them. And he did that in Egypt up until now. Egypt is a Shafi'i. Although the Ottomans, when they ruled Egypt for so long, the Hanafi madhab was the official madhab in the court system, but the spirit of the Shafi'i madhab, if you pray in an Azhar, you'll find out the way they call adhan, iqama, and janaza, and witr, and all these things based on the Shafi'i madhab. People liked him very much, and they, of course, if you have the Imam, is different from having the students of the Imam. So Shafi'i at that time, as some said about him, they said about Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah that he has, they compared his knowledge to, they said, this is Abu Zakaria As-Salmani, he said about Imam Ash-Shafi'i, if you talk about tafsir, he's the Imam of tafsir. If you talk about fiqh, who would even come close to him in fiqh? When you talk about hadith, فَلَهُ نَقْضُهُ وَإِبْرَامُهُ. He knows the hadith and riwayat. And if you talk about al-usul, usul al-fiqh, he is the one who put it together in one place. If you talk about Arabic literature and poetry and eloquency, he's the Imam there. He is Imam al-A'imma, Mufti al-Ummah, and al-Isbah al-Zahid. In tafsir, he's Abdullah ibn Abbas. And in hadith, he's Abdullah ibn Umar. In fiqh, he's Mu'adh ibn Jabal. And al-qada, judgment, he's Ali ibn Abi Talib. في الفرائض, mawarith, inheritance, he is Zayd ibn Thabit. And qira'at, في القرآن, he's Ubay ibn Ka'b. And in poetry, he's Hassan. This is how they describe Imam Ash-Shafiee. What's unique about all these Imams is that they are not good in one area and they don't know anything about that. They have this encyclopedia kind of knowledge. They are very good. They mastered all these kind of science and knowledge. Now, of course, if you want to study or even do a PhD in Islamic studies, you have to choose one specific branch in these branches, right? He knows al-nasikh wal-mansukh, which is a branch in usul al-fiqh. And usul al-fiqh, you put it in fiqh and hadith, and it's huge. It's huge. One of the fatal mistakes we have now is that when you know someone is a sheikh or imam, this means that he knows aqidah, he is good in hadith, he is good in fiqh, he is good in usul al-fiqh, he is good in theology, he is good in history, he is good in philosophy, he can answer any question in the world, right? If you lost something, go and ask an imam. He can tell you where it is. That's not scholarship. Scholarship is to know your limits. This one important thing that students, especially in the graduate level, they need to know. And I found this actually in the West, more in the West than in the East. When a professor in history, he says, no, you ask him a question in history, he says, no, I'm not specialized in this. I'm just specialized in the Roman history between the 2nd to the 4th century. That's it. Or 15th to 16th century. This is my area. Yes, I'm professor in history, but this is my area. Ask me anything about these 2 centuries, I can help you on this. But other than this, I'm sorry, I can't. You can go to this professor, he did his PhD on this area in history. Or in hadith or tafsir. Or this is is a muhaddith, he's not a faqih. Or is a faqih, but not. But in Egypt, for example, because of it tells you the great corruption, even in the religious organizations. The mufti, the grand mufti, is a huge thing in Egypt. If you go like 300 years ago, the grand mufti of Egypt is a big thing. Is elected by the great scholars. They choose the best of them, they elect him to be the Grand Mufti and of Sheikh al-Azhar. When you have the Grand Mufti of Egypt, he's a scholar of tafsir. He's a scholar of tafsir. That's it. He read all kind of tafsir and knows the manahij of because mufassirin also have schools of thought. Tafsir and things like that. But he's not a faqih. He's not a faqih. The business of fiqh is not his area. But he's the sheikh and has the amama and everything. And he was hired as a grand mufti. And everybody knows how weak he is in fiqh. He's very strong in tafsir, but he's very weak in fiqh. But he was selected because he's very naive. He's very naive. He came from, south of Egypt, and he came to Al-Azhar, studied, he did his master and PhD in tafsir. But he knows nothing in this world. When he came to the United States, one brother tells me, a president of Islamic Center, he heard that Sheikh al-Azhar is like the Pope for the Catholics. It's like a big thing in the entire world. And he came with 2 people, and he called his assistant. He said, I want to talk to the Sheikh al-Azhar, the Sheikh of al-Masjid al-Azhar. He said, Imam, I heard you're here. He said, what are you going to pray Jum'ah? Pray Jum'ah? He said, pray Jum'ah? Is there any masajid in America? He said, yes, of course, there are plenty of masajid. Okay, so where is your masjid? He said, our masjid is there, please come and give the khutbah. He said, okay, I'll come and give a khutbah. And he gave the address to his driver. He just came with 2 people, the driver and someone else. And he said, it is the first time in my life to know that there are masajid in the United States. He was invited by the State Department to attend a conference or a meeting or something. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad to know that there are masajid in America. This was in 1990s. No, I'm not talking about 200 years, it's 1990s. And this is, I heard from the president of this Islamic Center himself, my friend. And then he said he came and he gave, of course, khutbah in Arabic, very shallow, about Islam, and Rasulullah came with the light and guidance and things like that, and that's it. And he said, I was translating his khutbah, so that I made a totally different khutbah, different translation. But he was has been chosen because he's that naive. And the political authority know that he's just tell him what we want and he will say it. They said also about Imam Al-Shafi'i, about his ibadah, that he would make Khatm al-Quran once a day. In Ramadan, he makes 2 Khatm al-Quran every day. So 60 Khatm al-Quran in Ramadan. Although he lived most of his life as a poor person, but he was very generous when money came. He said to his student, Rabi' ibn Sulaiman, when he got married, how much mahr you gave to her? He said, I gave her 30 dinar. 30 dinar is like a good amount of money. 30 dinar, like 30,000 now. He said, how much you paid of this 30? He said, I paid only 6 dinars, and that 24 dinars I'll pay later on. So he said he went up in his house and he brought these 24 dinars. He said, okay, here, go and give it to her. Make her happy. He doesn't have to. I mean, mahr could be paid later on, but this is how generous and kind he was, rahimahullah. He said, Imam Shafi'i, I was bankrupt 3 times. I went bankrupt 3 times in my life. And I used to sell qalili wa kathiri, the valuables and the non-valuable stuff I have. Even the jewelry of my daughter and my wife. But I've never mortgaged my home or I just sell it. And one person with the name of Hussein Ali Al-Karabisi, he said, I spent 3 nights in the Imam Shafi'i's house, and he used to pray 1/3 of the night. And every time he passes by an ayah of rahmah, he makes dua of rahmah. Pass by ayah, talk about Jahannam or Adhab, he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how beautiful and long his prayer at night. He wanted to go to Mecca, and he went to a tailor to tailor clothes for him. So he gave him the clothes, and he took his measurement and things to do this for him. This was kind of argument between the ulama. So he went, and the fire came and burned the house and the shop of this tailor. And he came to him with some people asking Shafi'i, how much should I pay you because your clothes has been burned? He said, no, the scholars, they disagreed about whether you should pay me because I gave it to you, you lost it, it's not my problem, give me my money back, or the value of it. He said, the scholars have different opinions, but to me, I believe that you are not responsible for this because it's not something that you caused. It happened, so I'm not going to take anything from you. One of the greats, and I just want to end with this, Imam Al-Shafi'i, he wrote Al-Risala, Usul, and then he wrote Al-Um in his own fiqh. He said, I wish people study my books, study and spread my knowledge without mentioning my name. I wish people benefit from my knowledge, but they did not say this book is written by Ash-Shafiee or this is the science of Ash-Shafiee. They did not really care about being a great imam or leader. You know, sometimes you see a book, a title of a book, and the name of the author is bigger than the title of the book, right? Isn't it interesting? The name of the author, boom, that big, bold, and the title of the book is. So Imam Ash-Shafiee said, I wish people benefit from this without mentioning my name. My name is not important. Just take the knowledge and don't relate this knowledge to me. He wished this thing. So this is how he was able to overcome his ego. A person with this quality, this sharp mind, could be anything. But he did not want people even to talk about his his knowledge. I will stop here, inshallah, if you have any questions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Ash-Shafiee, Imam Ahmad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them the best of his reward for their dedication, commitment, their sincerity, their knowledge, their intelligence. And these are the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to help us understand our deen. We know they are humans, they're not prophets, they're not ma'soom. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them this knowledge, the amana of knowledge, and they maintained this amana, and they did not benefit from it in their dunya. And I believe we are talking about them today because they were very sincere. And this is what I found common between all these great scholars. They were very sincere. They did it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for the sake of dunya. That's why we benefit from the knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive them and have mercy on them. Any question before we go? Yes? All scholars did this. If you reach the level of ijtihad, yes, because there are students of knowledge and there are people who reach the level of ijtihad, and this ijtihad could be ijtihad juz'i, partial ijtihad, or complete ijtihad. So these great imams, they reach the level of complete, because they have the tools. You have the tools. So if you want to be a surgeon, then you have to spend some time, and someone has to prove you as a surgeon. You cannot just open the body of the people and operate on it when you don't have the tools. So you need to have the tools, you have to have the knowledge, the training, and the tools in the operation room. You need to have specific tools. If you have all these tools, the experience, the knowledge, then go ahead and treat this person. All right? Some doctors are more brilliant than others. All right? So if you have all these tools, then you can make your own mind. You can say, well, I would reject this hadith and I will follow this hadith. Why is that? Because it seems to me that this is more logical, this is more, there are plenty of evidence to support this, and also that this is the fatwa of this Sahabi, and this is the fatwa of the Tabi'een, so I would rather follow this, not that. Although two hadith are sahih, but you have to follow one or the other. Not everyone, it's not like anybody in the streets, you know, I'm going to reject this hadith, I'm going to do like Abu Hanifa. No. When we talk about knowledge, these four guys are in the top. Right? Of course, after the Sahaba and Tabi'een. These are in the top. And then their students are less knowledgeable than them. We're talking about Muhammad ibn Hassan, Abu Yusuf, Rabi' ibn Sulaiman, and all these. And then their students, and then their students. Where are we now? When we claim that we are students of knowledge, then we are just learning from them. But if someone like Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, for example, reached the level of ijtihad mutlaq, because he has the tools of hadith, tools of fiqh, tools of aqidah, and then they can make these kind of decisions, not the small or young student of knowledge. Unfortunately, these young students of knowledge, once they listen to some imams and they know something and read a book or two, they think, khalas, they have Islam in their hands and they can judge other people, and they live, they wear the cloth of Abu Hanifa or Malik, and they live like they feel that Malik is under this cloak. That's not true. Just know your limit. As these scholars, they used to go on humbly asking greater imams for knowledge. You know, if you have a point, make it. If you don't, just remain silent. Allahu A'lam. No, Ar-Risala is the name of the book because he wrote it to Muhammad ibn Mahdi, and he actually named it Al-Kitab. So Imam Ash-Shafiee named this book Al-Kitab, the book. But because of the message sent to someone, so it's more famous by Ar-Risala, translated in English in all languages. Those students who study philosophy of law, they must read Ar-Risala. It's translated into English. It's of course written in Arabic. All right. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون. سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.